Let me ask you something. What is the oldest business empire that still exists today? Most people say Coca-Cola. Some say Ford. Finance people say JP Morgan. But here's one that almost nobody outside India talks about. The Tata Group. 158 years old. Over 100 subsidiary companies under one roof. $165 billion in annual revenue. Operating in more than 100 countries. They own Jaguar Land Rover. They own Tech. They own one of the largest IT companies in the world. And they own the Taj Mahal Palace, which is one of the most iconic buildings in India. And here's the thing that gets me every time I think about this. 158 years is an insane amount of time for any company to survive. Most companies don't make it past 30. Most empires, businesses, or otherwise collapse within 2 or 3 generations. But Tata is on its 5th generation of leadership, and it's stronger today than it has ever been. So, how? What is the actual reason this company survived when everything around it changed? Colonial rulers, partition, wars, economic crisis, and globalization. And still, Tata. Today, we're going to decode exactly how they did it. And I promise you, the answer is not what you think. So let's go back to the beginning. The year is 1868. India is under British colonial rule. A 29-year-old Parsi businessman named Jamshedji Tata started a trading company in Bombay. Now, I want you to really think about what that context means. You see, building a business under colonial rule means the legal, financial, and the political system all are designed to serve the colonizer, not you. Indian businesses were systematically disadvantaged. Raw materials went out, finished goods came in back from Britain. Indian industry was kept deliberately underdeveloped. In this exact environment, Jamshedji Tata decided to build an industrial empire. He built India's first modern textile mill, India's first steel plant at a time when British officials literally laughed at the idea that India could make steel. He built India's first luxury hotel, the Taj Mahal Palace, because he was refused entry into a British-only hotel in his own country. And that last one is my favorite. Legends say that he was turned away from the Watson's Hotel in Bombay because Indians weren't allowed in. So he built the most magnificent hotel in the city right next to the gateway of India and made it open to everyone. That story tells you everything about the Tata philosophy. Don't complain about the system, build something better than what actually excluded you. But here's the thing, Jamshedji died in 1904 before he saw his steel plant completed, before he saw most of his vision come to life. And yet, the empire he built didn't just survive after his death. It grew, decade after decade, generation after generation. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens by design. And the design, ladies and gentlemen, was 3 specific moves. Move number 1, design the company so that making money is never the first priority, and make that structural, not just philosophical. Now I know what you're thinking. Every company says it has a mission beyond profit. Every founder gives a speech about values. And then the investors arrive and the values quietly disappear. Tata did something different. Something almost no other company in the world has done at this scale. The holding company of the entire Tata empire, Tata Sons, is 66% owned by charitable trusts. And let me say that again because it's actually kind of wild. 2/3 of the Tata Group is owned by charitable trusts, which means 2/3 of whatever profit this 165 billion empire generates goes to charity, education, healthcare, rural development, research, not to shareholders chilling on a vacation somewhere. Now, most people hear this and think, okay, nice story, a feel good core social responsibility stuff. But I want you to think about what this actually does structurally as a business strategy. Because the trust owns 66%, no outside investors can acquire a controlling stake in Tata Sons. You literally cannot do a hostile takeover of the Tata Group. Private equity firms cannot walk in, load it with debt, strip the assets, and walk away. Activist investors cannot force Tata to cut research and development and boost short-term profits. The ownership structure is a massive fortress. And here's the second thing this does, which is even more powerful. Because Tata doesn't need to maximize profit every quarter. It can make decisions that no listed company would dare to make. When Tata Steel was struggling, Tata didn't immediately shut it down to protect margins. It kept 65,000 employees working while it figured out a long-term solution. A publicly listed company with activist shareholders would have made at least 20,000 people redundant within a quarter. When Tata launched the Nano, the world's first cheapest car, it wasn't expected to be hugely profitable. It was built because Jamshedji's original philosophy said, build things that serve India. A company chasing quarterly earnings per share would never have built the Nano. That mission was baked into the ownership, which meant the mission survived every leadership change, every economic crisis, and every generation because it wasn't in anyone's head. It was in the legal structure of who owns what. Let's move on to move number two. Build trust so deep across so many decades that it becomes a balance sheet asset no competitor can replicate. Here's something I find genuinely fascinating about the Tata brand. You can walk into the most remote village in India, places where electricity is unreliable and smartphones are new, and ask someone if they trust Tata, and the answer is almost always yes. Not because of advertising, not because of brand campaign, because of 158 years of consistent behavior. Tata Steel didn't just build a factory in Jamshedpur, it built an entire city, housing, schools, hospitals, park, sports facilities for the workers and their families around 1910s. In 1912, Tata introduced an 8-hour working day. That was legally required anywhere in India. They just did it because Jamshedji believed workers were not a cost, they were the company. And here's where this becomes a genuine business strategy, not just a nice story. Every time Tata did something that felt generous or ethical, it compounded trust. And ladies and gentlemen, that trust in business translates to something very specific. When Tata enters a new market, customers gave it the benefit of the doubt. When Tata makes a product, people assume it's reliable before they even try it. When Tata applies for a government contract, regulators view it differently than an unknown company. When Tata acquires a foreign company, employees of that company don't panic the way they would with a private equity buyer. That is trust functioning as a business asset worth billions and impossible to manufacture quickly. But this is where the story gets really interesting. Trust also creates the greatest vulnerability any company can have. Because when you're known for trust, a betrayal of that trust hits 10 times harder. In 2016, Cyrus Mistry was removed as chairman of Tata Sons in what many describe as one of the most dramatic corporate coups in Indian history. A company with 5 years of reputation would have been destroyed by that episode. Tata had 158 years of deposits in the trust bank. One withdrawal, even a big one, didn't empty the account. Let's move on to move number 3. Go global, not by becoming less Indian, but by using your Indian identity as the thing that makes you a better owner than everyone else. So this one is genuinely my favorite part of the Tata story. In the 2000s, under Ratan Tata's leadership, the Tata Group went on one of the most ambitious global acquisition sprees any Indian company had ever attempted. In the year 2000, Tata bought Tetley, a British company founded in 1837. Tata paid around £271 million for that. It was the largest overseas acquisition by an Indian company at that point in history. In 2007, they purchased Corpus Group, a European steel giant. Tata paid $12.9 billion for it in a competitive bidding war against a Brazilian steel company. The financial press was brutal. They called it reckless and overpriced. Tata had paid too much. And then, 2008, they purchased Jaguar and Land Rover from Ford Motor Company, and two of the most iconic British car brands in the world, James Bond's car, the Queen's car, literally. Tata bought both for 2.3 billion US dollars. And here's where Tata did something that almost no other acquirer would have done. They didn't gut it, they didn't slash the workforce, they didn't move manufacturing to a cheaper country, they didn't rebrand it or merge it or strip its identity. They invested in it. Tata poured in billions into JLR's research and development, into new models, electric vehicles and development. They kept the British manufacturing base. In addition to that, they kept the British leadership largely intact. They let Jaguar Land Rover be Jaguar Land Rover. From a company standpoint, Ford was desperate to offload to the fastest growing luxury car brand in the world under Indian ownership. Now, why does this matter strategically? Because Tata used its ownership philosophy, the same philosophy it had built over 158 years, as the management model for its global acquisition. Patient capital, long term thinking, invest in people, don't extract, build. And that approach works in India. As it turned out, it also worked in Britain because good people, given good resources and respect, build good things everywhere. The Tata identity wasn't a limitation in global markets, it was the competitive advantage. Alright, let me tell you what the Tata story is really about because there is a version of this story that gets told all the time. And it goes like this: Tata succeeded because it was ethical, because it cared about people, because it had good values. And look, all of that is true, but it's also incomplete. And incomplete stories are dangerous because if the lesson is just be ethical and you win, then every founder who runs an ethical company but fails can't understand why they failed. Here is the actual lesson: Tata didn't survive because it was ethical. Tata survived because it built structures, legal, financial, ownership, that made ethical behavior the only rational choice. When 66% of a company is owned by charitable trust, greed doesn't just feel wrong, it's structurally unprofitable. Because the person who tries to extract wealth from Tata for personal gain is fighting against an ownership structure that has more power than any individual. When your brand's entire value is built on 158 years of trust, a short term betrayal of that trust destroys more value than it creates. Which means, even from a purely selfish financial perspective, being trustworthy is the rational strategy. And when your global acquisitions are funded by patient capital from charitable trust, you can afford to be that kind of owner that builds instead of strips, which produces better long term returns than the extractive model. And that is the exact system. Tata didn't just reach good values, it engineered a company where good values and good business were the same thing. That is extraordinarily rare and extraordinarily difficult to replicate, which is exactly why nobody asks. Three lessons that Tata teaches us. Lesson number one: don't just state your values, structure them. Every company has a value statement. Most of them are forgotten the moment profit pressure arrives. Tata made its value legally and structurally binding through a trust ownership model that cannot be easily undone. So, the question for anyone building anything, whether it's a business, team, or organization, is not what do we value? The question is, what structure have we built that make those values the only rational choice, even under pressure? And lesson number two: trust is a balance sheet asset. Build it like one. We talk about trust like it's a feeling, reputation, something nice to have. Tata shows us it's a financial asset. It opens door. It reduces risk. It gives you the benefit of the doubt in markets you have never entered. And like all assets, it compounds over time if you treat it right. The Cyrus Mistry crisis tested it, but 158 years of deposits meant one withdrawal didn't bankrupt the account. Build trust early, build it consistently, and it will protect you when you need it most. Lesson number three: your identity is not a limitation, it's your differentiation. Tata didn't succeed globally by becoming less Tata. It succeeded by bringing the Tata way of doing things, patient capital, respect for people, long term thinking, into markets that were exhausted by short term extractive ownership. So, Jaguar and Land Rover's employee had watched Ford panic manage them for years. Tata walked in and said, "We are here for the long term," and proved it. So, Jaguar's employees had watched Ford panic manage them for years. Tata walked in and said, "We are here for the long term," and proved it. Whatever makes you distinctly you in your work, your business, your thinking is not the thing to hide when you go global. It's the thing to lead with. 158 years, 6th generation of leadership, colonial rules, partition, wars, global financial crisis, and still Tata. Not because they were lucky, not because they had the best products, but because they engineered a company that was structurally built to last. Now you know how the game works. If this changed how we see business, subscribe to Xavier Decoded. Every week, we take the most powerful stories in global business and show you how it works.